I'm Shantae Sumter.
And I'm Farah Jadrin. This is one of the biggest major changes that air travelers have seen in terms of security at airports since the early 2000s. And Shantae, we've been getting a lot of questions from folks leading up to this day.
Yeah, so we will be answering some of those questions for you this morning. And we also will have team coverage across the Pacific Northwest. We have those teams spread out for you. We'll head to Brandon T. Jones, who is live in Eastern Washington. Ashley Graham is live in Portland. And then we'll go over to Boise, where Tyson White will join us. So we'll get to those crews a little later in the show. But first, we want to kick things off here in Seattle. Farah, you and I have been at the airport all morning. Relatively, things have been moving smoothly. But one thing I've noticed for a lot of those travelers, they've had those passports in their hands.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people are using that as kind of like the fallback, I would say. They've had that out. They've had it ready. I did see a couple people, though, pulled over to the side, going through a little bit more of that screening, maybe taking about 10 to 15 minutes. And thankfully, the airport wasn't too busy at that time. But I've been watching the security lines all morning, and I've been talking to people about whether or not they were Real ID ready. I spoke to one man who's visiting from outside of Washington State who said he's been Real ID ready for a long time.
We did Real ID when it first came out in Arkansas. We lived in Arkansas, then we lived in Ohio, we got Real ID there, and now we've recently moved to Florida 4 years ago and had it there. So we've had Real ID probably, how long has it been out? 8 or 10 years, maybe? Eight years?
So if you want to skip those extra screenings, of course, you want to have some type of ID that is Real ID compliant. So these are lists of some of those IDs you can use to get through security. You have an enhanced driver's license, an enhanced identification card, a valid passport, a green card, tribal issued photo ID, your U.S. military ID would work as well. But there are about 16 different options, actually. So we have a list of the full IDs accepted by TSA. Just text the word ID to 206-448-4545 and we'll send you that link.
And we've been talking about this for probably a solid year with the reminders, but Shantae, this has been in the works for 20 years when this first became federal law back in 2005. And that's really because TSA wants each state to have that streamlined form of security and checks. So that's what an enhanced driver's license is in each state. So the Department of Licensing here in Washington says just under 29% of Washingtonians have an enhanced driver's license. They don't have any data, however, showing how many passengers have other forms of Real ID. But we want to tell you 93,000 drivers in our state got an enhanced license. That's the most they've seen ever in a single month.
And leading up to this, we've been showing you all those long lines, not just here in Washington at our Department of Licensing offices, but actually across the country. In Oregon, we know that record-breaking numbers are seen as well, and you saw long lines there.
Oh yeah, and the record-breaking number is something like 55,000 people per week.
The wait sucks if you don't have an appointment.
Well, I thought I had it, and then I looked at my ID when I was getting ready to book my flight for Vegas, and then I just saw that it needed that little circle on the side with that star, and I'm like, dang it, I gotta get it.
Yeah, I knew this is coming. It was very well published. I do have a passport as well, but I thought, Real ID is not bad to have.
Yeah, so we are at the deadline day. It's a little late to try to get ahead of it by now, but the warnings have been going out that it is now starting to be enforced. And back in March, Oregon had just under 36% of compliance, so it'll be interesting to check in with them there.
Exactly. So we want to head to Ashley Graham from our sister station, KGW. She's live at the Portland airport. Ashley, with those lower compliance rates, what are you seeing down there?
Yeah, Farah, Shantae, it seems to be business as usual here at the Portland International Airport. Now, for those people who aren't Real ID compliant, they can still fly, but it might take them longer to get through security. I checked in with TSA today. They say there's no separate line for people who don't have that ID, but there might be some extra steps when you get screened at the front of the line. The Oregon DMV tells us that about 38% of Oregonians with an ID are Real ID compliant, and thousands are still scheduling appointments to get their Real ID card. I did talk with a few people this morning who are traveling. They say they heard the reminders and they got what they needed to be Real ID compliant.
I actually got mine earlier this year, so I just took the plunge, got it early, took care of it, didn't want to worry about it.
I have my passport, so I was reminded several times to make sure to bring that so I could get through security.
Now things seem to be running normally here at PDX. Most people I talked with either have that passport or they have that real ID, but of course there is that grace period in effect and we don't know exactly when that will end. Guys?
Thank you for that, Ashley. And so when you think about Portland, that is just one of many airports because across the country, this is going into effect. So a lot of people have been wondering, will there be extra TSA air agents at these airports?
Yeah, and Shantae, we've asked them and they told us there really aren't extra agents to put anywhere. This is an all-hands approach because there are 435 airports that are enforcing this across the country. So they really got to put everyone out there and put them to work.
It will be an all hands on deck approach. Our operation will be fully staffed that day. We're going to bring people in who usually have other functions for TSA to help keep the operation moving efficiently and smoothly.
Well, TSA told us the goal is to make sure that passengers who come with their real ID get to their gate smoothly.
And so far, that's what we've been seeing today. But of course, we still are checking in and keeping you posted on what may change. We want to go now to Eastern Washington and check in at the Spokane airport. That's where we find Brandon T. Jones. Brandon, what are you seeing there?
Yeah, Shantae, Farah, it has been relatively chill here at the Spokane International Airport. Some may describe it a little bit as sleepy. We got here around 4:30 this morning. That was the busiest we saw. The lines were out to kind of roughly where I'm standing right now, but ultimately, each lane was open. Those TSA officials were able to get all of those travelers nice and through on a smooth level. So we did get a chance to speak with some of the travelers around the airport this morning. Most of them were well prepared, having some of those passports on hand. Were you aware that, hey, this is a new security standard going into place today?
Yeah, we had kind of heard about that. We both have passports and we're actually traveling international, so it wasn't a super big deal to us. But yeah, a little bit of anxiety going into things.
Oh yeah, well, is it nice to kind of see? Yeah, it's really calm over here, huh?
Yeah, it's been nice. Yeah, every once in a while it gets pretty busy, so we're pretty happy with it today.
Yeah, another couple I spoke to, they told me they had expired passports, but it was still within the protocol of being able to show that as a form of identification. Others, of course, having that enhanced driver's license. So again, ultimately here at the Spokane International Airport, moving nice and smooth and a lot of prepared travelers. Now live at the Spokane International Airport, Brandon T. Jones, KRIM 2 News.
Well, thank you for that, Brandon. Of course, that's what we want to hear, things moving smoothly, even though some people are having to use those passports and other forms of identification. So we want to check in with some of our sister stations from across the country. We've been following this from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yeah, and right now we can actually get out to Arizona and check in with Troy Lynch, who's at the Phoenix airport.
This is Troy Lynch at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport in Phoenix, Arizona. We are on Real ID watch all morning long. Take a look behind me. It's early on a Wednesday morning, so the lines are not crazy right now, but with this last second change made by the Secretary of Homeland Security saying that everybody is able to fly, look, passengers are happy right now. They're not stressed out whether they have their real ID or not. They are going to be able to fly. It's just a matter of, are you going to be getting into that extra line, and is it going to take you 15 to 30 minutes longer if you don't have any federally compliant ID? However, some travelers that we spoke with this morning, they say that they've already had their real ID for years, and some of them are just bringing their passport, just trying to make it as easy as possible, but it doesn't seem like too many people are that stressed out about the deadline now passing. I'm Troy Lynch for KPNX 12 News.
I'm Leanne Stapleton, and I'm at the Portland Jetport here in Portland, Maine. Now, this morning has been busy. Folks coming through, going through TSA. They got to catch their flights. The assistant airport director here told us that they're seeing 98% compliancy with that real ID or the other acceptable forms of ID. Now, I also spoke with the TSA spokesperson for New England, and they're seeing over 80% compliancy across the region. So far on this deadline day, things seem to be going smoothly, at least here in Maine. In Portland, Leanne Stapleton, News Center, Maine.
Well, we are happy to hear that for the most part, everybody's seeing smooth traveling. And we've been warning people about this for months, but of course the warnings have been out for years.
Yeah.
But still, a lot of people have unanswered questions this morning, so that's what we're here for, to give you those answers.
Yeah, and one question we are getting a lot is, why is the TSA making folks be Real ID compliant? Well, the answer is this. It's because it's part of the law that was passed in 2005. It's the Real ID Act following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The Real ID Act sets nationwide ID standards to prevent fraud. It requires TSA to only accept secure and verified IDs for air travel before Real ID, Shantae. Each state had its own standards for issuing driver's licenses, and some were considered to be vulnerable to fraud.
So, all about safety here. Another question that I've been hearing a lot is, will I be turned away if I come to the airport and I don't have a Real ID? The short answer is no. However, that's not something you want to do, because you are going to want to plan for those additional screenings. We've seen a few people do that this morning. TSA says that you want to plan for actually up to 30 minutes. They will then attempt to verify your identification through Homeland Security, but if they can't, you will not be able to go through security.
Yeah, and this is normal procedure for this to happen when TSA travelers maybe lose their wallet or something like that. But we did speak to TSA officials about this, and they really don't want you relying on just a passport or something like that. Get that enhanced ID, and you can put it off if you don't feel like you're traveling. But TSA officials have said, maybe you have an emergency come up and you have to fly somewhere. You want to make sure you make that appointment, and at some point you're getting your enhanced driver's license.
Right. And the enhanced driver's license, that is something that a lot of you may be still waiting to get. We know there have been long lines. So coming up a little later in the show, we actually have someone here from the Department of Licensing letting you know what you need to know about Real ID.
And also, if you have questions, you can still send those in to us. But if you need some information and have not yet gotten it, you can text the word REAL to 206-448-4545, and we'll go ahead and send you that link directly to your phone or your iPad.
And some of those other top questions we've been hearing, will my kids be able to travel without a Real ID? We'll have that answer. Plus, we'll tell you more about how hard it is to get that Real ID right now, an enhanced driver's license, just because of those lines.
And remember, we are checking in at other airports across the region. We'll take you out to Boise to check in and see how things are going in Idaho as well.
How is King 5 News different? We tell meaningful stories.
I very easily could have died.
We give issues context.
The idea is to turn empty spaces into new opportunities.
We give everyone a voice.
It makes me upset because this is our home.
We spotlight new ideas.
Whatever it takes to help.
We look for solutions every day.
And this is just scratching the surface.
That's how. We stand for truth. Stream free on King 5 Plus.
King 5 News at 5 is my chance to connect with you in a more personal way, with interviews and people you won't see anywhere else. Because if it's a story that matters to you, it matters to me too.
The longer I live here, the more I appreciate what's around me. The nature, the skyline, and the mountains still surprises me.
Best decision I ever made was to move to Seattle. I knew this was my home. I would tell them to watch K5 because you're getting more than just your weather and your traffic.
They make me feel connected.
Watching King 5 has kept me more centered.
I love watching King 5 mornings because I love who they are as people.
Jake and Mimi are great at connecting with their audience.
I've been watching Rich since I started watching the news.
I've never seen somebody who's so excited about reporting the weather.
And now when she watches TV, she'll say, "There's Shantae."
Shantae does a great job of reporting where the topic is.
She always sets us up for success.
They know me. They know the information that I want and need for the day, and they're great to watch.
I trust them, and they're part of my family.
King 5's First Alert Weather Team, your trusted weather source for Western Washington.
If it looks severe or just inconvenient, follow us for that First Alert.
Get a clear forecast with First Alert Weather, only on King 5 News.
I saw a man that needed help, and I knew I had to do something. I was in the middle of a golf swing on the third hole. The heart just decided to stop beating. I was trained in CPR about 50 years ago. Never had to use it. For some reason, it all just came back to me. I do fully understand that I've been given a new lease on life. Get out and learn CPR because you never know when it's going to come in handy.
So do you have your Real ID yet? No. Real ID?
I do not.
Do you have a Real ID?
I do not. So what does that mean for me if I don't?
That's the question a lot of people have this morning. What does that mean for me if you don't have your Real ID, as that is the standard flying across the country that went into effect this morning? I'm Shantae Sumter.
And I'm Farah Jadron. We are following Real ID all across the country just to see how it's impacting travelers across the region as well. We want to check in with one of our sister stations right now.
Yeah, we want to go back to Boise. Tyson White has been following this deadline as it has been approaching. How are things going at the Boise Airport? What are you seeing so far?
Well, Shantae and Farah, things are looking pretty decent here in the Boise Airport. Things have run smooth all morning, really. We've been out here since about 5 o'clock Boise time, and things have run really smooth. Lines have not formed anywhere, and so far we haven't heard anything from TSA or the Boise Airport saying that they've turned anybody away. And we know that that's true also thanks to the Department of Homeland Security Secretary announcing yesterday that they would not be turning anybody away, but working on further steps to maybe secure that make sure their identity is who they are when they come to the TSA checkpoint. Boise Airport staff here all morning have been making sure folks have their correct ID before they even get in the queue for security. So really, they've been really making the steps to make sure things are going well here and making sure folks are getting to where they need to get going. Also, the Real ID Act, again, as we mentioned throughout the day this morning, that is, it was passed back in 2005 by Congress and is a way to enhance the security post the 9/11 attacks in D.C. and Washington. Here in Idaho, we call that Real ID the STAR card, and the Idaho Transportation Department can help folks find that appointment time and how to get the right documentation to get that ID.
We have a really cool tool on dmv.idaho.gov. It's called Add the Star Tool, and they can click that tool and then it'll walk them through a series of questions to kind of determine, do you need this? Do you need that based on your particular situation?
So to get that STAR card in the gem state, you'll need your birth certificate, a social security card, and 2 proofs of residency, like a utility bill or a mortgage statement. And if you've been married or divorced recently, you'll need to make sure you have that marriage license or divorce decree and not a copy of the actual document to get that STAR card at the DMV. And again, ITD recently opened a temporary location here in Boise at its State Chinden campus. And of course, you can walk into that location and get that Real ID as long as you have the proper documentation. Now again, back here at the Boise Airport, again, things have moved smoothly today. The passengers I've talked to throughout the morning say they're ready to fly with either a passport or their Real ID out there. So smooth sailing here in the Boise area.
That's good to hear. Tyson, thanks so much. Shantae, we've been getting a lot of questions from people, and one question is whether or not you can use your passport as a Real ID compliant identification. And yes, you can. If as long as it's a valid U.S. passport or a passport card, you can do that. But we know that the TSA has been suggesting that folks get that enhanced driver's license instead of flying domestically with that passport.
Using your passport is a great idea until it's damaged or lost. And if you're using that for domestic travel, you're going to be in the process of replacing that. So I don't really recommend that long term. I think it's a good short-term fix until you can come up with a longer-term solution.
And I'm actually one of the people having to use that passport as a short-term solution because right now the Department of Licensing offices are packed. Yesterday I went out to see if I could get an appointment and it was July 5th, but most of the local offices here actually didn't have any appointments available. So if you do need an enhanced license, something you want to do is to plan ahead for that, because right now we don't see an end for the foreseeable future.
Yeah,
of this.
and you could be waiting, especially if you have some summer vacation plans, things like that. And speaking of that, families might be trying to plan that. Another question we've been seeing a lot of is, do my kids need a real ID? So if they're 17 or younger, they don't need one as long as they're flying within the United States. If they are flying with a companion, that companion over 18 needs to have their compliant real ID form with them when they're coming to the airport. A few quick questions. Is a passport a real ID? Yes, we just mentioned that, but it's good to reinforce that. Can you use a military ID? Yes, that's another great form of ID to use. Dependents and retired military IDs are good too. We spoke to someone yesterday who is the wife of a military person. She said, I've got that ID card with me. I feel ready to go, and she definitely was. Nexus and global entry, yes, those are also compliant forms of ID.
Yeah, there's actually about 15 or 16 different forms that you can use that are compliant. So as we mentioned, you can text us, text ID to 206-448-4545, and we'll send you that information.
Yeah, we want to keep making sure we're answering people's questions. We also have this information available for folks in Spanish. So si necesitan la información o recursos, envíanos un mensaje de texto al número en tu pantalla, and that's 206-448-4545.
Thank you. We want to make sure that everyone has this information. So we are going to continue to keep you informed. Coming up next, we'll have a representative from the Department of Licensing answering the questions that you still may have concerning Real ID.
If not us, then who else?
We're part of the checks and balances. It is our job to hold powerful people accountable.
It takes time, it takes resources, it takes tenacity.
Our stories deliver results.
The type of work we do, it changes laws, it changes communities.
It's not that we just hope we see a result or, we're crossing our fingers. No, we expect to get a result. And we will stay with it until we do.
And it is great for another season.
Hey, fire it up! Keep it going! And Team 5 is all over it!
Police here in our region have seen an increase in serious crimes committed by teenagers.
Prosecutors tell us access to guns is driving the spike.
I did some really dumb stuff and I got caught up.
Is the juvenile justice system working?
We may not be able to save everyone.
I got 5.
When young people are displaying a behavior, they are screaming from the mountaintop.
I need help. I can't do everything on my own.
A King 5 original series, Underage and Under Arrest. Streaming now on King 5 Plus.
I didn't start out doing race and equity reporting, but the moment I realized that representation was so important was when I was covering a teacher strike, and one of the parents came up to me, and she was an Asian mom with an Asian son. She said that watching you really gave my son the idea that that was something that he could do. I was floored. And I just thought that was incredible, that this impact that I can have, not just as a reporter who is on air, but then the content that we're putting out. To make a mark on a child's life feels like a very heavy responsibility, and I felt like that was something that I wanted to take on by putting more folks who are normally not represented on mainstream media. That really does make a difference, and the kids are watching. The kids are really watching. We will do our best to do you right, and we don't take your trust lightly.
And welcome back. We have been following the Real ID deadline. Today is Enforcement Day. I'm Farah Jadrin.
And I'm Shantae Sumter. We have been giving you the latest information, answering your questions, and we also spoke about the long lines we're seeing as people try to get enhanced driver's licenses. So this morning we have Nathan Olson, who is with the Department of Licensing. Thank you for being here with us this morning.
And thank you for all the information you've given all to this point. It's been great information.
Of course, thank you. And we just want to keep everyone informed. And speaking of questions that people have been asking, what's the number one that you've been hearing?
I think the number one are about appointment times to get enhanced driver license. And then the wait times. I think they're related questions. We are seeing 1 to 2 hour wait times, sometimes a little more on the I-5 corridor. If you want to come in without an appointment, you can do that. On our website, it says how long the wait time is for appointments and for walk-ins. We're trying as hard as we can to go through the lines and ask people, if you already have a passport, you really don't need an enhanced driver's license, as you said a little bit ago. So you don't really have to be there at that time. Other people might need that space. So we're trying to kind of triage some of the lines outside of the license offices.
And the TSA has been recommending that folks maybe don't travel with the passport domestically. Are there other benefits if you get your enhanced driver's license other than flying in the United States?
Mainly right now it's just flying. That's the big thing. So yeah, and again, as you said before, there are many different kinds of documents that you can have that are Real ID compliant.
Nathan, we know that a lot of people have been talking about those weights you mentioned. I know just yesterday, as I said a few minutes ago, I tried to get an appointment. It said July 5th. So for people who don't need an enhanced license and they're trying to do other things at the Department of Licensing, what would you tell them?
Probably wait a bit. So it's funny you asked that question. My daughter turned 16 in a week and a half, and I was not smart, and I didn't think about this earlier, so she might have to wait 4 to 6 weeks, and so she's going to be mad at me. She's mad at me sometimes, so I'm okay with that. But
And with these longer lines, has the Department of Licensing been able to move staffing around to, say, offices that are busier than others?
A bit, yeah, and we've also opened up some more appointment times that we hadn't opened up previously, just to deal with the traffic. So, and we're trying to do that. And as I said, walk-ins, we're accepting walk-ins as much as possible. Also, we're telling people if we have the capacity to deal with walk-ins or if we don't have the capacity to deal with walk-ins.
And with those walk-ins, we've seen people lining up in some places up to 2 hours ahead of time to get into these offices. So at what point do you cut that off?
That's really dependent on each office, how many staff there are, what time of day it is, that kind of thing. So it's not something I can give an easy answer to.
So just be prepared.
Just be prepared, exactly.
And we've seen tens of thousands of people get their Real ID or enhanced driver's licenses within the past few months. Was that something you guys were expecting, getting closer to the deadline, even though people have had a long time to do this?
Great question. Yes, we've expected this wave of people. You know, I think it's common nature, just with my daughter and myself, the procrastination. Oh, I don't have to do it now, I can wait 3 months. And then 3 months comes tomorrow, and you realize that it's here. And so I think some of that, we did expect a lot of that.
And how long do you all think this demand will stick around? So if, let's say someone was like me yesterday, July 5th, that's pushing them out. And a lot of offices had no appointments at all.
Yeah, we're expecting probably through middle to end of summer. It's going to probably progress for a while. So.
Okay. All right. Well, if you're not Real ID compliant yet, this is another stern warning and lots of information for folks. Nathan Olson with the Department of Licensing, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So we are, of course, keeping you all informed this morning. And if you still have some questions, we do have a way for you to get the answers to some of the questions we may have not answered for you this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can go ahead and text the word REAL to 206-448-4545. We'll send you a link that's got a ton of information and really helpful. And Shantae, I just want to hold this up for folks to see. You might get one of these slips going through TSA if you were somebody who did not have a Real ID compliant documentation today. It gives you information to scan it, and you can then find the information. If you're a Washington resident, you'll also get a smaller card in case you have not gone to the Department of Licensing, as we just had our guest here to talk about, and make your appointment so that you do have a form of documentation documentation that is Real ID compliant.
Exactly, and that is the key. And I will say really quick, when I did refresh yesterday, randomly an appointment popped up for today. So you never know, people may be canceling, but the big thing is preparation is key. Those long lines might be necessary at the DOL for the foreseeable future.
Exactly. All right. Well, we want to thank everyone for sending in questions. We're happy to answer them. That's what we're here for. We're here at SeaTac International Airport. I'm Farah Jadrin.
And I'm Shantae Sumter. Have a great day.